Someone just disrespected you, right in front of everyone. You can feel it in your chest, that familiar rush of heat flooding through your body, your pulse pounding against your skin, your jaw tightening. Your mind races with 1,000 comebacks, each sharper than the last. Every cell in your body is screaming to strike back, to defend yourself, to make them regret it. But then, something inside you pauses. You realize this exact moment is where your true strength is tested. Not in how loud you speak, not in how hard you hit back, but in whether you can stay grounded when every part of you wants to explode. This moment defines who you really are, because it's never what they say that reveals your character. It's how you choose to respond when your ego is burning for revenge. This is the battlefield that separates the powerful from the powerless. And in that split second between the insult and your reaction, lives your entire character. Most people think strength is about domination, being the loudest voice in the room or proving you're right at all costs. But the Stoics saw it differently. Marcus Aurelius, an emperor who faced betrayal, war, and endless criticism, said, "The one who becomes angry has already lost." He didn't mean you should be weak. He meant true power is the ability to remain unmoved by what doesn't deserve your peace. Because if they can control your emotions, they already control you. When someone disrespects you, your emotions will demand immediate action. They'll whisper, "Don't let them get away with it." But wisdom tells you something else. Don't let them pull you down. The real challenge isn't standing up to them. It's standing up to yourself, to the impulsive, reactive part of you that wants satisfaction more than strength. In that stillness, that pause before you act, lies everything that defines a Stoic mind. You are not learning to be silent and submissive. You're learning the highest form of self-control, the art of responding with dignity when every part of you wants to fight with emotion. This isn't weakness, it's mastery. The kind of mastery that turns chaos into clarity, conflict into composure, and insult into insight. Because the truth is, almost everyone fails this test. Not because they're bad people, but because they never learned how to handle disrespect without losing themselves in the process. They let anger dictate their behavior, ego drive their words, and pride destroy their peace. But there's another way, one rooted in ancient wisdom and modern strength. In this message, I'll reveal 5 mistakes you should never make when someone disrespects you. They may seem small, but each one silently erodes your confidence, your reputation, and your power. And mistake number 3, the one almost everyone makes, is especially destructive. It's the reason most people lose all respect, even when they're right. You'll learn what powerful people do differently, how they protect their dignity without needing to fight for it, how they command respect without demanding it, and how they walk away stronger instead of angrier. Because real power doesn't shout, it doesn't argue, it simply stays unmoved. If you value inner power and emotional mastery, stay till the end. This could change how you face disrespect forever. When someone disrespects you, the impulse to react instantly is almost irresistible. You can feel the heat rising through your body, a sudden rush of adrenaline flooding your chest, tightening every muscle as your mind searches for the sharpest words to throw back. It feels as if doing something, anything, will restore your power, your pride, your sense of control. Yet this is the trap that turns strength into weakness. The instant reaction, that urge to fire back without thought, is the very moment you lose the battle you think you're fighting to win. I once watched this unfold during a company meeting. A colleague was blindsided by harsh criticism, unfair, exaggerated, and clearly designed to humiliate him in front of everyone. His face flushed, his breathing quickened, and before anyone could intervene, he snapped. His voice rose as he defended himself, listing his achievements, questioning his critics' competence, and turning the meeting into a verbal duel. What could have been an obvious display of unfair treatment instead became a spectacle of emotion. The critic looked composed, while my colleague appeared unprofessional and insecure. No one remembered the unfair attack, only his loss of control. That's what reacting immediately does. It hands your dignity over to the person who provoked you. They might not have power over your job, your worth, or your future, but if they can make you abandon your composure, they own the moment. And that's enough. People who provoke you often want one thing: proof that they can control your emotions. The louder you get, the more reactive you become, the more they win. This kind of reaction doesn't come from wisdom. It comes from a much older part of you. Neuroscientists call it the reptilian brain, the part that evolved for physical survival, not social intelligence. When it senses threat or humiliation, it activates fight, flight, or freeze. Your mind interprets disrespect as danger, as if words were claws and opinions were weapons. But you're not in the wild anymore. You're in a social battlefield where power belongs not to the strongest impulse, but to the calmest presence. Epictetus captured this perfectly centuries ago. Between stimulus and response lies our freedom. That small gap, the pause between what happens and how you answer, is where your strength truly lives. It is the space that separates the man controlled by emotion from the man who commands himself. When you react instantly, you erase that space, letting instinct dictate your behavior. But when you pause, even for a few seconds, you activate your higher mind, the part capable of discernment, proportion, and grace. The Stoics taught that mastery doesn't mean suppressing emotion, but understanding it. Anger, hurt, and indignation are not enemies. They are signals. They tell you that a boundary has been crossed, that something matters to you deeply. But they are not orders you must obey. Your emotions can inform your decision, but they must never lead it. In the silence before you respond, take 3 deep breaths. Not the childish count to 10, but a deliberate reset that lets your rational mind come online. Each breath draws you out of your instinct and back into your awareness. Ask yourself quietly, what response serves my dignity best? Not what feels good right now, not what punishes them, but what preserves your standard. These 2 answers will rarely be the same. The first one belongs to your pride. The second one belongs to your strength. Most people confuse the two. Imagine for a moment that the person you respect most, someone whose calm under pressure inspires you, were in your place. How would they handle this situation? Would they lash out, or would they make the entire room feel the weight of their silence? Visualizing that person gives you perspective. It reminds you that you're not reacting for temporary satisfaction. You're shaping your reputation, your image, and your self-respect in real time. When you resist the pull to react, you don't suppress your power, you refine it. You show everyone, including yourself, that you are not at the mercy of someone else's behavior. You remain the author of your own actions. And in a world where most people are ruled by their emotions, restraint looks like strength of another dimension. If this resonates, take a second, not to react, but to reflect. That's where your real power begins. Remember, your initial reaction is instinctive, but your deliberate response is chosen. The first one proves you are human. The second one proves you are in control. One comes from impulse, the other from integrity. The first belongs to the moment, the second belongs to your legacy. Every time you pause before responding, you reclaim the distance between what happens to you and what you become because of it. That pause is not weakness. It is your highest expression of power. Because anyone can throw words. Anyone can get angry. But only those who master themselves can stand calm in the fire and choose silence over surrender. In the end, your reaction defines you far more than their disrespect ever could. The first response is born from the chaos of emotion. The second, the one that follows the pause, is born from dignity, and that is the one the world remembers. Arguing with someone who disrespects you is like wrestling with a pig. You both get dirty, but the pig enjoys it. The more you try to convince them that you deserve better treatment, the more power you hand over to them. What you believe to be self-defense is, in truth, a form of submission. You're not protecting your dignity, you're placing it on the table for negotiation. Disrespect often triggers the instinct to prove ourselves. We want to make them see our worth, to expose their unfairness, to demand an apology that will restore the balance. It feels like justice, but it's actually dependence disguised as confidence. The moment you start arguing for your value, you have already accepted their opinion as the judge of it. You've turned your dignity into a courtroom debate, and the person who insulted you is now the jury. I once watched a friend fall into this trap. During a meeting, a colleague dismissed her work in front of everyone with a smirk and a careless comment. Her face went pale, then red, and instead of staying silent, she spent the next hour defending herself. She listed her past achievements, explained her reasoning, and demanded acknowledgement for her efforts. But the more she spoke, the weaker her position became. The man who insulted her didn't apologize. He doubled down. Her desperation for fairness only made her look desperate for his approval. By the end, no one remembered his insult. They remembered how shaken she looked, trying to earn respect that should have been hers by default. That's the hidden danger of trying to change someone's mind. It's built on a false assumption that their recognition is necessary for your value to exist. But your worth doesn't increase because they finally admit it, and it doesn't decrease because they refuse to see it. When you fight to make them acknowledge your worth, you are essentially telling yourself that their validation is worth more than your peace. You make them the gatekeeper of your self-respect. Marcus Aurelius, who spent his life surrounded by criticism and envy, understood this deeply. He wrote, "How much trouble he avoids, who does not look to see what his neighbor says or does." The Stoics didn't mean that you should ignore everyone completely. They meant that peace begins when you stop outsourcing your sense of worth to other people's opinions. The more you focus on changing their view of you, the further you drift from your own center. Disrespect is rarely about truth. It's about power. People who belittle others often do it to feed an insecurity, to reassert control, or to protect their fragile sense of superiority. It has little to do with who you are and everything to do with what they lack. You could present evidence, logic, or proof, but they aren't interested in understanding. They're interested in dominance. And when you start explaining yourself to someone whose goal is to undermine you, you've already surrendered the one thing you had over them: composure. The Stoic way is not to beg for understanding, it's to preserve clarity. When someone disrespects you, you owe them truth, not persuasion. You owe yourself composure, not victory. The wise response is simple, calm, and final. You state your position once, clearly, without emotion, and then you walk away. No debate, no defense, no desperate attempt to fix how they see you. Your peace is too expensive to spend on convincing someone committed to misunderstanding you. You can say something as direct as, "That's not accurate," or "I disagree with your interpretation." Then stop. Don't elaborate. Don't justify. Don't stand there hoping they'll backtrack or apologize. Your silence after clarity is your shield. It tells everyone, including them, that you know your value doesn't depend on winning their agreement. The dignity in your restraint speaks louder than any defense could. This doesn't mean you pretend their words didn't sting. It means you refuse to let their words define you. Their disrespect is a reflection of their character, not a verdict on yours. You cannot reason someone out of a position they never reasoned themselves into. Trying to change their mind is like arguing with a mirror. You see motion, but no progress. Every time you explain, justify, or argue, you're signaling that their opinion carries weight in your world. But confidence, real confidence, doesn't explain itself. It simply is. The more you defend your worth, the more fragile it appears. And that fragility is exactly what they were hoping to expose. When you stay calm and unbothered, they're left with their own reflection. And that's often punishment enough. You might think silence makes you look weak, but in truth, it terrifies those who thrive on reaction. Silence is a mirror they can't manipulate. It forces them to confront their own pettiness, their own need for validation. When you stop trying to change their mind, you reclaim your energy. You stop fighting battles that were never yours to begin with. So next time someone tries to diminish you, remember, you are not on trial. You don't have to defend your existence, your effort, or your dignity. Speak your truth once, then disengage. Let them keep their opinions. They are too heavy to carry with you anyway. If you're learning to value your peace more than their approval, you're already living the Stoic way. 99% of people do this, and it destroys their dignity instantly. When someone raises their voice, we raise ours. When they roll their eyes, we sharpen our tone. When they get aggressive, we match their intensity to prove we won't be intimidated. It feels fair, even justified. Yet in that moment, we've already surrendered our composure and stepped onto their battlefield. where chaos rules and reason dies. Matching someone's negative energy doesn't restore respect. It erases it. I learned this firsthand during a tense project meeting. One of my teammates, frustrated over a missed deadline, began speaking to me in a sharp, condescending tone. His words were clipped, his voice rising with every sentence. My instinct screamed to respond in kind, to meet his energy with equal force so no one in the room would mistake my calmness for weakness. But instead, I did the opposite. I lowered my voice, slowed my speech, and chose my words deliberately. The contrast was almost physical. His anger bounced against a wall of stillness. Within moments, the atmosphere shifted. What began as an attack turned into an uncomfortable display of his own loss of control. People in the room stopped looking at me and started looking at him. His aggression became the story, not the issue we were discussing. That is the power of restraint. It doesn't just protect your image, it reframes the entire situation. Psychologists call it symmetrical escalation, when two people mirror each other's hostility, pushing conflict higher and higher until no one remembers what started it. When both sides are shouting, observers can't tell who's right. They only see two people losing control. The original offender gets exactly what they wanted: company in their chaos. Misery loves company, and disrespect thrives on symmetry. Seneca said, "The best revenge is not to be like your enemy." It's easy to mistake intensity for strength, but Stoicism teaches that true strength lies in contrast. When others lose control, you don't follow them down the spiral, you rise above it. Matching their energy is a trap that turns you into the very thing you're trying to oppose. You think you're standing up for yourself, but what you're really doing is letting them dictate your behavior. If their tone can pull you out of your center, you've given them the steering wheel to your emotional state. Power, real power, doesn't imitate, it redirects. When you choose calm over chaos, reason over reaction, you change the dynamics of the entire room. People expect conflict to escalate. It's the natural rhythm of human emotion. But when you refuse to match energy, you create a psychological dissonance, a quiet shock that forces everyone present to reassess who truly holds control. The more they push, the more your composure exposes their weakness. The more they shout, the more your stillness commands attention. You've turned the mirror toward them, and suddenly their anger looks ugly against your poise. Think about what happens internally when you match their energy. Your breathing quickens, your voice rises, your body tenses. You're no longer speaking from reason. You're reacting from emotion. It's not your words that lose credibility. It's your energy. Even if your argument is valid, your tone betrays your balance. The person who can stay measured when provoked radiates authority. The one who can't loses it, no matter how right they are. This doesn't mean you become passive. Stoic calm is not submission, it's control. You don't silence yourself, you discipline yourself. You speak, but you do so from a place of deliberate command, not reactive emotion. When someone gets loud, lower your voice just enough that others have to lean in to hear you. When they rush to attack, slow your pace. When they flail emotionally, anchor yourself in facts. This contrast creates a magnetic pull toward your composure. People instinctively trust the one who seems unshaken. I've seen entire confrontations collapse under this strategy. A heated argument can't survive without fuel, and calm presence starves it. It's not a tactic of avoidance, it's a demonstration of superiority. Not moral arrogance, but mastery. The untrained mind believes that silence loses power. The trained mind knows silence is power. Every second you stay composed, you're forcing them to face their own loss of control. They can't fight what won't fight back. Matching someone's aggression might feel satisfying for a few seconds, but it leaves a trail of regret behind. You replay what you said, wishing you had stayed composed. You remember their smirk, realizing your outburst gave them exactly what they wanted, proof that they could pull you off balance. But when you refuse to mirror their chaos, something deeper happens. They expose themselves. The room sees it, and even they feel it. That's the quiet victory of restraint. It leaves you respected, not just relieved. The Stoics understood that self-control is not just a moral virtue, it's a weapon. It deflects attacks without staining your integrity. It turns confrontation into contrast, letting your dignity speak louder than your anger ever could. When people watch two sides clash, they instinctively side with the one who looks more grounded. The one who stays calm becomes the moral center of the interaction, regardless of who started it. So next time someone tries to provoke you, resist the reflex to rise to their level. Instead, do the opposite. Lower your tone until every word lands with quiet precision. Slow your gestures. Let your silence stretch until it becomes uncomfortable for them, not for you. Your calmness will do what your anger never could. It will reveal the truth without you saying a word. If you want to master this level of composure, subscribe to True Stoic Way. We practice it here every single day. Because the world doesn't need more people who can shout louder. It needs more who can stay still in the storm. The moment you make it personal, you lose. When you turn a disagreement into an attack on someone's character, you shift from addressing behavior to destroying connection. And that's a battle no one truly wins. What begins as a simple conflict of opinions becomes a war of egos. And once you cross that line, there's no way back to mutual respect. The satisfaction of putting them in their place might feel powerful for a few seconds, but it always leaves behind damage you can't undo. I once witnessed this happen between two business partners who had built a company together from nothing. During a heated meeting about strategy, one of them accused the other of being short-sighted and careless with finances. Instead of responding to the claim, the accused snapped back with something far more personal. He brought up the other man's past failures, questioned his leadership, and mocked his intelligence in front of the entire team. What could have been a productive discussion about business direction instantly turned into a character assassination. Neither man recovered from it. Within weeks, their partnership collapsed, and the company followed. That's the danger of making it about them. The moment you shift the focus from what happened to who they are, you're no longer seeking resolution, you're seeking revenge. And revenge always costs more than it gives. It poisons your credibility and burns bridges you might one day wish you hadn't destroyed. People can recover from criticism of their actions, but they rarely forget being attacked for their identity, their competence, or their worth. Stoicism teaches that every conflict must be kept within its true boundaries. When you personalize the issue, you allow emotion to override reason. The purpose of communication shifts from solving a problem to proving moral superiority. You stop speaking to the situation and start speaking at the person. Suddenly, every word becomes ammunition. And while you might win the argument, you lose the respect of everyone watching, including yourself. The distinction is simple but profound. Address what they did, not who they are. You can say, "That comment was unprofessional," without saying, "You are unprofessional." You can say, "I disagree with your decision," without implying, "You always make terrible choices." The first approach focuses on the behavior, something that can be acknowledged, corrected, or discussed. The second attacks the person, something they can only defend with pride and hostility. Once you label someone's character, the conversation stops being about the issue and becomes a fight for identity. And no one ever surrenders their identity willingly. When you make it personal, you don't just wound them, you expose something about yourself. You reveal that you hold grudges, that you weaponize private knowledge when under pressure, that you value winning over wisdom. And those watching, coworkers, friends, even strangers, notice it. They may not say it out loud, but they quietly file it away as a mark against your maturity. They learn that when you're angry, you play dirty. There's an old Stoic truth: what you attack reveals what you fear. When you go after someone's character, you often mirror your own insecurities. You project your frustration, your ego, your unresolved pain onto them. It feels like strength, but it's actually avoidance, a refusal to face your own discomfort. Seneca warned that anger is temporary madness, and nowhere is that madness clearer than when we turn disagreement into personal destruction. Marcus Aurelius offered a gentler antidote. He wrote, "Whenever you want to cheer yourself, consider the good qualities of your companions. Even when people disappoint you, even when they behave poorly, remember that their mistakes don't erase their humanity. Seeing their better side doesn't excuse the offense, It reminds you to preserve your own balance. You can confront wrong behavior without condemning the entire person. You can disagree without dehumanizing. It takes far greater strength to criticize actions with precision than to attack people with rage. Precision is surgical. Anger is explosive. Precision fixes problems. Anger multiplies them. Every time you keep the focus on the behavior, you preserve not just your integrity but your power. You show that you can rise above personal emotion and deal with reality as it is, not as your ego wants it to be. There's also a practical reason to avoid personal attacks. They last. The wound of a harsh word outlives the argument. People might forget the details of the disagreement, but they will remember the insult. They will remember how you made them feel small, not how right you were. And in professional or personal relationships, that memory quietly erodes trust. One outburst can undo years of credibility. When you resist the urge to make it about them, you not only maintain your composure, you model strength. You show others that conflict can be handled with discipline, that disagreement doesn't have to destroy connection. In a world addicted to outrage, calm objectivity becomes magnetic. People will gravitate toward you not because you never get angry, but because you know how to stay measured when others lose their balance. So the next time someone's words sting and the temptation rises to fire back with a list of their flaws, remember, you don't need to expose them to prove your point. Their behavior already did that. Your job is to stay grounded in what happened, not who they are. You win when you maintain clarity, not when you inflict equal pain. Because at the end of every conflict, what people remember isn't who shouted loudest, but who stayed centered. And that calmness, that discipline, will always belong to the stronger person. If you've ever turned a disagreement into a personal war, this lesson will remind you that power lies in restraint. The worst thing someone can do is make you like them. Not in character, not in strength, but in bitterness. When their disrespect lingers in your mind long after the moment has passed, when their words echo in your thoughts hours or days later, they've succeeded in infecting your peace. That's how you know they've won twice. Once when they insulted you, and again every time you replay it. I've lived that mistake more than once. I remember a Friday afternoon when a colleague made a cutting remark. Nothing overtly cruel, just a subtle, dismissive tone designed to diminish me in front of others. I handled it calmly in the moment, said nothing, and walked away thinking I had mastered myself. But that night, as I lay in bed, the replay began. I thought of all the things I should have said. By Saturday morning, the replay had become a full mental film. How I could have responded, how others would have seen my composure, how I could have embarrassed him back. By Sunday, I wasn't even angry at him anymore. I was angry at myself for staying silent. The incident lasted 30 seconds, but I gave it an entire weekend of my life. He had probably forgotten it by dinner that same day, yet I had turned it into an emotional occupation. He lived rent-free in my mind, and I was the one paying the cost. That's what happens when you let disrespect consume you. You carry the offense long after the offender has moved on. The insult becomes your obsession, looping endlessly in the background of your mind. You start analyzing motives, inventing comebacks, fantasizing about closure, all while the other person goes on living freely. Every replay strengthens the chain that binds you to that moment. Epictetus warned us centuries ago, it's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. The insult itself is powerless once it's over. What gives it life is your attachment to it, your refusal to let it die. The Stoics understood that emotional pain often survives not because of what happened, but because of how tightly we cling to the memory of it. Each time you revisit the event, you reopen the wound. Modern neuroscience confirms what ancient philosophy knew intuitively. The brain rewires itself through repetition. Every time you relive an upsetting moment, you strengthen the neural pathway associated with it. You're literally teaching your brain to feel that pain more vividly, to recall it faster, to hold on to it longer. Over time, a single moment of disrespect becomes a mental habit. You think you're processing it, but you're actually preserving it. Rumination, the endless mental replay, is the mind's cruel trick. It pretends to offer closure but only deepens attachment. It whispers, If I just think about it one more time, I'll understand it, I'll control it. But you can't control what's already gone. The past is fixed. Your only control lies in the present, in choosing not to feed the fire. Every minute spent replaying what happened is a minute stolen from your peace, your work, your joy. You don't heal by replaying the wound. You heal by refusing to pick at it. So what do you do instead? You set boundaries, not just with people, but with your own thoughts. When someone disrespects you, give yourself permission to feel everything fully. Anger, hurt, disappointment, but on your terms. Set a strict time limit for reflection. 10 minutes, 15 if you must. Then stop. Decide consciously. I will think about this until here, and no further. Feel it, name it, and then release it. You're not suppressing emotion. You're containing it. You're refusing to let a moment of weakness extend its influence over your life. Once that time is up, redirect your focus to something that reclaims your energy. Work on a goal. Move your body. Write something. Call a friend who reminds you of your strength. Do anything that reconnects you to the present moment, because the present is the only place where peace exists. When your mind tries to wander back to the insult, and it will, treat it like an unwelcome guest. Notice it, then close the door. Remind yourself, that moment is over. It doesn't deserve another second of my life. Each time you catch your thoughts and bring them back to the present, you're training your brain to serve you, not sabotage you. Over time, this becomes your new default. Awareness instead of attachment. Composure instead of chaos. And remember this truth. You cannot control what people say or do, but you can always control how much space they occupy in your mind. That's your kingdom. That's your inner empire. Don't give away your throne because of someone else's insecurity. Your peace is the most expensive property you own. Stop renting it to people who don't respect you. Protect it as fiercely as you would protect your home, because it is your home. It's where your clarity, your creativity, and your strength live. And once you lose it, everything else begins to crumble. If you're ready to guard your peace and rebuild your strength, join us. True Stoic Way isn't just a channel. It's a brotherhood of self-mastery, a place where warriors of calm learn to rule themselves before they try to rule the world. Because the man who owns his peace owns everything. Every act of disrespect is a mirror. It reflects less about the person who offended you and more about who you choose to become in that moment. Each encounter, every insult, every interruption, every attempt to provoke you is a test of your inner discipline. How you respond when someone crosses the line is the purest proof of what you've mastered within yourself. Disrespect doesn't define your worth. It reveals your control. You've seen how easily dignity can be lost. The first mistake is reacting immediately, surrendering wisdom to emotion. The second is trying to change their mind, as if their validation could confirm your value. The third, most common mistake, is matching their energy, becoming what you despise. The fourth is turning conflict into a personal war, attacking character instead of addressing behavior. And the final, most destructive mistake is letting the moment live on inside you, allowing the insult to rent space in your mind long after it should have been forgotten. Each of these traps pulls you away from yourself. They make you reactive instead of reflective, impulsive instead of intentional. But when you resist them, when you pause before reacting, stay silent instead of arguing, stay calm instead of mirroring anger, stay focused on the issue instead of the person, and finally, when you refuse to let it consume you, something powerful happens. You stop being controlled. You become unshakable. The Stoics understood this centuries ago. Dignity is the reflection of self-mastery. Every insult becomes an opportunity to prove your strength. Every provocation a reminder that you're not here to win arguments. You're here to win respect, especially from yourself, because self-respect once earned can never be taken by anyone else. When you act with restraint, when you choose composure over chaos, you send a message louder than words ever could. You tell the world, I am not ruled by you, I am ruled by me. That's the essence of Stoic strength, not apathy, but mastery, not silence born of fear, but silence born of power. So the next time someone disrespects you, remember, they're not challenging your worth, They're revealing your training. Your reaction will decide whether you fall into their chaos or rise into your calm. If this message spoke to you, hit subscribe and join True Stoic Way, where modern warriors train the mind, not the ego. Because your reactions reveal your power, and your peace defines your legacy.